All right, let's start here, not in a palace, but in the heart of Stockholm, 1833. Alfred Nobel bursts onto the scene, so to speak, to a family with dynamite in their blood long before dynamite itself existed. You've got his father, Emmanuel, an inventor with more ideas than cash, tinkering away with explosives, literally shipping armaments off to Russia for the Tsar. That's the environment our merchant of death grows up in. I mean, Nikki growing up among blueprints, chemicals, and can we call it financial chaos? That's got to shape you, right?
Absolutely, John. And you can almost smell those sharp, acrid notes of progress and peril blending beneath the pine. What fascinates me about Nobel is that, yes, he's surrounded by the tools of destruction, but he's this astonishing polyglot, kind of a restless seeker. He's fluent in so many languages, a lover of poetry, but then he's off to Paris and the States, throwing himself into chemistry like it's a sort of alchemical calling. Even after suffering that tragic accident, the explosion that killed his own brother, Emile, did he pull back? No, he pushed harder. Instead of recoil, we get dynamite, which I swear is one of the great examples of perseverance through pain. I always find myself wondering whether that's stoicism or something darker.
Maybe both, Nikki. Nobel isn't merely a child of gunpowder, but a paradox incarnate, an engineer cracking open the atoms for industry, yes, but also for poetry's sake. The urge to build and to obliterate, housed in the same body. I'm obsessed with the image. Nobel hunched over his laboratory table, hands stained and trembling, dreaming up ways to move mountains and, inadvertently, armies. Gelignite, ballistite, names that sound like spells and curses all at once. His success? It's seismic. A fortune from 355 patents, factories dotting the globe. But that success is Janus-faced. Progress on one side, devastation on the other. That tension, the dual-use dilemma, haunts every step of his legacy.
Exactly, Eden, and it's that haunting duality that I think follows him all the way to his grave, or almost to his grave, because here's where it gets really interesting. The infamous, possibly apocryphal obituary, the headline, The Merchant of Death is Dead. Not exactly a career highlight. Imagine reading in the morning paper that history already thinks you've just figured out how to kill people faster and got rich off it. So was that the catalyst? Did that misprint force the man into a deep self-audit?
It's such a cinematic moment, isn't it? One of those errors that feels fated somehow. I mean, according to Annika Pontikis of the Nobel Foundation, there's debate over the obituary specifics, but there's a kernel of truth. Nobel saw his legacy written in ink, and it wasn't poetry, it wasn't invention, it was death. Of course, it's tempting to paint what happened next as pure atonement, this big redemptive gesture. But, like we talked about in previous episodes, especially our one on the hidden roots of violence, these things are rarely that simple. Regret is only one note in the entire symphony of a life.
Yes, and his letters tell the real story. A conflicted, sometimes tormented genius who spends as much time brooding about peace as he does concocting new compounds. I love that line to Bertha von Suttner. Perhaps my factories will put an end to war sooner than your congresses. It's chilling. He thinks horror itself could be civilization's salvation. There's almost a proto-Cold War flavour there, the idea that more terror could mean less blood. Yet you see flashes of raw yearning. He's not some cartoon villain. When he writes of his dream for a world at peace, it's wistful, vulnerable, and I think deeply human.
And Bertha von Suttner, that indomitable advocate, she's the ghost at the banquet, isn't she? Their friendship, their correspondence, absolutely pivotal. Von Suttner never let Nobel off easy, always pushing back on his faith that fear would solve war. Instead, she demanded structure, Congress's activism, actual human hands shaping a better world, not just terror as the deterrent. Many people don't realize she later becomes a Nobel Peace Prize laureate herself in 1905. That's how reciprocal their influence was. And too neat to say she convinced him, but she surely steered the rudder.
And we have to mention the times, right? Nobel wasn't inventing in a vacuum. The late 19th century is brimming with internationalist hope. Peace movements were swelling. Arbitration was hotly debated. Nobel travelled widely. He absorbed all these ideologies like a sponge. The language of his will, awarding those who bolster fraternity between nations, mirrors the mission statements of that era's peace organisations almost word for word. I find that really striking.
Not just his will, but the very way the prize is awarded, by a Norwegian committee, not a Swedish one. Subtle maybe, but laden with meaning. Back then, Norway had this reputation in the Union for being more progressive and peace-minded. It's an elegant bit of political poetry, no? The man who made weapons for kings bestowing his greatest prize through the quieter nation next door. I love it.
It took years of wrangling for the Nobel Prizes to become reality, to legal drama, disbelief among his relatives. But on December 10th, 1901, 5 years to the day after Nobel's death, the first laureates are announced. The Peace Prize is shared, fittingly, by a founder of the Interparliamentary Union and the founder of the Red Cross. Storybook symmetry. Yet we're left with ambiguity. Did Nobel act out of remorse, vision, or something messier and more beautiful? I'd say all three, maybe more. I mean, human progress never gets a neat little bow. Just look at our episode on tech bubbles or the shadowy risks of innovation.
Yes, it's the contradictions that nourish us. The Peace Prize isn't just gold and ceremony. It's a conversation, born of tension, longing, and maybe just a glimmer of hope that even from destruction, something luminous can arise. To me, his story is about the courage to face your own contradictions and to act on them. That's what inspires real legacy. And I'm reminded of our earlier talks about resilience and shadow, how you can't separate creation from its potential for harm or healing from its roots in pain.
Which brings us to the lingering paradox, the merchant of death funding the dreamers of peace. The Peace Prize is a riddle, an act of both confession and aspiration. Maybe it's less about cleansing a legacy, more about embracing the fact our shadows and our best intentions are forever intertwined. In that sense, Nobel's gift isn't just his fortune, it's his admission that we can redirect our power if we're honest about its source. And that's a charge every generation has to answer, again and again.
That's beautifully put, Eden. All right, let's wrap it there for today. The Nobel legacy is more than just invention or regret. It's the messy, intricate journey of confronting what we leave behind. Thanks, Nikki, for grounding us, and Eden for always stirring the shadows just enough. To everyone listening, keep your contradictions close. We'll need them next episode. Good night, Nikki.
Night, John, and thank you both. It's always a pleasure untangling history's big knots together. Take care, Eden.
Night, Nikki. Night, John. May your questions lead you somewhere luminous. Until next time.